All right, it's the end of the session. I am not here with Heidi and with Rusty. They are out having some fun. Rusty's trying to go back to guard dog mode. But this is the roadmap to success. Rusty! Rusty! Here, buddy. Rusty. There you go, buddy. Yes, come. What a handsome fellow you are. This is Rusty. Okay, so basically, we were called in originally because Rusty, the dog you just saw, has some dog reactivity issues to walks, mostly to dogs that are larger than him, but it's a little inconsistent. Now, when we sat down to kind of discuss things in the session, I kind of, from what my estimation is, the dogs are a little bit confused as to their role in the house. And so we spend a lot of times kind of going over creating a healthy leader-follower dynamic. So basically, one of the first things I talk to the guardians about are exercise. The guardian here does an amazing job. He walks his dog twice a day, every day. Most people don't do that. 95% of my clients don't do that. So
retirement.
But I talk to a lot of people who are retired that still they're more selfish about themselves. So it's awesome that you're doing that. So basically, on the walks, we might have the dogs go and spend a little time with Judy, our trainer, and work on some loose leash walking. Let me see. I'm going to talk about kind of in a reverse order, what we did in the session here. So one of the last things we talked about was really how to deal with dogs that are reactive on walks. Now, we spent a lot of time in the session. A lot of that starts inside the house. The dog doesn't have a lot of rules and structures under exercise. They can get confused into thinking that they are in charge of protecting or possessing their humans. And that makes them more of a guard dog. He is also, Rusty is a Wheaton Terrier, so he's a herding breed to begin with, and they're supposed to be in charge of others. So it's natural for him to think that he needs to be in charge. So basically, if you're walking down the street, we just went through a focus exercise. Now, if the write-up here that this video is on does not include a link to the focus exercise, please call me or text me. I can very easily add it to text. I want you to be able to watch that exercise. So remember, the first stage is 1 second, 1 second. And you do that until the dog's pretty much looking up at you and not looking at the treats. Then it goes 1 second, 2 seconds for all 12 treats. Eventually 1 second, 3 seconds. Eventually it gets to a point where it's 1 second up, 15 seconds towards the dog's mouth. When you're doing it, make sure you keep your palm facing the dog. Don't twist your wrist this way. Okay, so once we get to the point where, and the video will explain it, but at first you want to get it within 7 days. Hey Heidi, come. That's passive training. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Is your head going to hit that?
Only if I lean back. Thank you. Good looking out. I appreciate that.
A sharp point.
I appreciate that. I got a hard head though. All right. So basically, you're walking down the street and you're with Rusty, and you see another dog turn around the corner, but it's far enough away. Well, the key is to get the dog out of trouble before it starts to react. Most of us wait until the dog is actually reacting, and when the dog's reacting, it's essentially a dog version of it being hysterical. He's not going to listen to anything there. You're not going to be able to communicate with him. The only thing you can do at that point is increase the distance once he's reacting. But the real secret and the key to this is to not let him get into reacting in the first place. So some of the things you want to look for, if Rusty's walking down the street and everything's nice and cool, and all of a sudden he just slows down and he kind of lowers his head and looks this way. That's usually the first sign. They stop, they freeze, they lower their head, and they stare. Or let's say the dog is right there. They stop and they stare and they look away, frozen. Or they start moving very slowly. Slow motion is a big warning. And so the key is to recognize those signs. He can also lick his lips a lot. He can turn his head and yawn. The hackles, the hair along his spine can stand up. His tail, his nub of his tail might go straight up. Ears might go back. And the head might be a little bit higher, the body, overall stiffness. What you want to do is kind of recognize your dog's normal body language. So when he's at the house, he's nice, relaxed. Look at where his ears are positioned, how he's carrying his head, where his tail or his stub is going, and his overall body mechanic. So once you know the dog's neutral body, passive training, yes, focus. Then we can start seeing deviations from that. So we're walking down the street, and all of a sudden his ears, instead of being here, go here. His head, instead of being here, goes here. His tail goes up and he gets stiff and he starts staring at the other dog. Well, he's getting closer and closer to reacting. Our job is to get him out of that position. Now, for dogs, front facing is confrontational, sideways is approachable. If I wanted to meet the camera, if you were at the camera as a dog and I ran straight up to you, that would be a very rude, it would also almost result in a fight. If I wanted to meet you, I'd take a rounded approach, and when I approach you, I'd approach you from the side. So for dogs, front facing is the most difficult encounter they can possibly have. So if you're walking down the street and it's a dog that he's reacted to or you suspect he may react, I'm going to look at the dog and check down, look at the dog, look at my route, look at the dog, look at my route. And as soon as you see him kind of slow down or stop or give any of those warning signs I just talked about, you want to give him that focus command. He looks up at you, and the key is to do this when the dog is far enough away he does not perceive it to be a threat. Once he gets too close, he's going to be reactive. So the dog looks up, sees it, you say focus, he looks up at you, and you walk down somebody's driveway or down their sidewalk, or you walk into the street, you cross the street, you go around a car, around a tree, around a shrub, whatever it takes, until eventually you get to the point where you've got enough distance, and then you ask the dog to sit and you practice some of those focus exercises. And you practice those, giving the other dog an opportunity to pass by you. And wait for it to pass and go, a good 10, 15 paces past. Might be 10, might be 40 paces. Just play around with it until you know how far away that dog has to be before you stop practicing the focus. And if he's reactive, the best thing to do is just increase the distance between them. So now you've redirected him away from whatever he's normally would be reactive to. So instead of reacting, he's counting on us. He sees that we're controlling the situation and putting him in a position to succeed so he doesn't have to react and make the other dog go away. What they're trying to do is increase distance. And they act tough, makes the other dog turn around and walk away. That increases distance. Well, the other option we can do is I as a dog can move away. Now, dogs are very front-facing creatures, so we need to help them by giving them a focus to get them out of focusing on the wrong thing, focus on us, then we lead them away. Okay, so also pick and choose your battles. If you're going to be walking the dog, don't walk it between 4:30 and 6 o'clock. That's like happy hour. You're going to encounter the most dogs then. So you're doing, I think, early in the morning, which is probably great because if you do it right, either too early or you do it a little bit later after everybody's already left for work, you're not going to see very many dogs in the walk, and that's really the key. Now, we also talked about maintenance because he is a guard dog. He likes to go to all the windows of the house and kind of look out over his territory. Mm-hmm. And so I talked about maintenance. Maintenance is basically using a Roman blind concept. Roman blinds are blinds that go from the bottom up. Our blinds in America typically go from the top down. So if we shut our windows or shades, then we miss the benefit of enjoying the nice autumn day and the beautiful vista. So what I recommend doing is either getting white paper and cutting exactly the size of the bottom portion of the window, and it goes up as high as Rusty can see when he's standing up at the window. So just have him go to the window, have a treat, and ask him to jump up. This is the only time you'll actually do it. So he can see up to here. Let's say his head is here. I might have the paper or the film go to here. So every time Rusty goes to the window, he hears a sound. He can't look out. Because the way the dog's minds work, if I go to the window and I see that there's a varmint out there and I bark at it and eventually it leaves, I think my barking is what caused it to leave. I don't realize it just eventually went looking for something else. And every time that happens, it kind of feeds or validates or rewards the dog and makes them more likely to do that. So if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, ask them, hey, I want to get that film. It's a sticker that you put on the glass, and it makes it like frosted or a dark tinting. It's like a tinting process, but it's a sticker that you can take off pretty easily as well. I would probably recommend you put it on both sides of the window. Get a really dark one. The idea is we want to set it up so he can't see through the window when he's standing there. So if it's really light, he'll be able to still see shapes out there and still bark at them. Dogs are very attracted to movement. So you went to the point where you go, and I had one client that she actually put 3 layers on the window before it was dark enough where the dog stopped responding. So it's not the whole window, it's just the part that the dog can see out of. So that way we can still see it, still lets light in above the window, and he doesn't get the validation or reward every time he goes and barks at the window. Okay, so we also talked about rules. Now, rules are really important because for dogs, they go through life probing to see where the boundary, the limit, or the edge is, but also who the leaders are. The leaders are the ones who enforce the boundaries or the rules. If you don't have any rules, the dog quickly sees you as a peer. One of the rules I usually like to suggest is not letting dogs in the furniture. I don't know if that's going to be a rule that's going to be applicable for this house. If that's not the case, then you really need to emphasize some of the other rules. Like the dog has to sit before we open the door and let him out. Go to the door and say sit once. If the dog does not sit, walk away and sit down nearby and ask Siri for a 60-second timer. Make sure you're seated. After 1 minute, go back to the door and command him again only one time. And don't say sit, because he'll say, Rusty, can sit? And Rusty's like, no, not right now, thank you. No, sit. 1, 2, 3. You don't sit by 3. I walk away now and I sit down for 2 minutes. Next time I walk away and sit down for 4 minutes. And I keep double the length of time until eventually when I say sit, Rusty's butt hits the ground. As soon as it does, boom, that door flies open. Now, what if I go to the door and I say sit and Heidi sits and Rusty doesn't? Well, I'd open the door and let Heidi out, and I would not let Rusty out. I'm paying them for, or they're paying for the privilege of going outside. Heidi paid the toll. Rusty did not. So Heidi gets the privilege, Rusty does not. After a while, Rusty will start figuring this out and start sitting at the door as a way of asking for attention. Remember, as soon as they do, make sure you open that door as fast as you can. Okay, let me see, what else? We talked about shouldn't be allowed in the kitchen or preparing food. Shouldn't be allowed around any humans who are eating. And I like to see the dogs eating one at a time. So I'd probably feed her first because she eats faster. But remember who's feeding needs to take 5 bites of something first. Chip, cracker, carrot, whatever you want. Then you put her food down and she eats. So when she's eating, Rusty's not allowed in their room. When she gets done eating, we have her leave. We pick up her food receptacle, which I'll talk about in a sec. And then we put Rusty's down. And then when Rusty's eating, she's not allowed to come in the room. This way, the dogs practice a little self-restraint, and they see the humans that are preventing it from happening. Ideally, you want to find like a doorway where the dog is eating is behind me, and I can stand in that doorway, and it's easy to protect. And after a while, instead of standing in the doorway, I stand 1 step back from the doorway. And then the other dog still sees it. If he tries to come forward, I take a step forward to block the doorway again. But eventually you get further and further away, and eventually it gets to the point where he just stays out of the room on his own. And that's the key, is we want him to develop some self-control. Okay, so let me see. So in terms of feeding, I would recommend you get some snuffle mats. Get one at first. Feed him or her their dry kibble only out of the snuffle mat. So dump it all in there and shake the snuffle mat and move the stuff around, and so that you don't see any food on top of it. They've got to use their nose to find it and then move it around to lick a couple pieces of kibble up and then go somewhere else. It's very physically draining for dogs to use their nose. It's very stimulating. It's also very relaxing. So you accomplish 3 or 4 things with the snuffle mat. And these dogs definitely need some energy. We're going to talk about energy here in a sec. So the snuffle mat, you can get them on Amazon or Chewy. You can go to the Green Spot. They have them there. You can also make them. They're made to be washable, so you can wash them because the dogs will drool on them and they get a little kind of nasty after a little bit of time. So there's also the Omega Treat Ball that you can get on Amazon or Chewy. It's a ball. You put all their kibble in. They've got to nudge it just right. It's kind of a version of this little Saturn toy where it's got a hole in it. The dog's got to hit it just right for the couple pieces of kibble to fall out. The Omega Treat Ball doesn't have the ring around it. It's just they nudge it around. Finding other treat dispensing toys like that and puzzles for the dog to do can be really beneficial in terms of helping them keep them occupied, give them something to do, helps them problem solving, boosts their self-esteem. There's a lot of benefits to it. Okay, so those are some examples of rules. Another thing we went over was exercise. And exercising, like I started out talking about earlier, the Guardian does a great job of walking them, and he walks them correctly. A lot of us, we are more interested in completing a circuit, and so we were constantly getting the dog's nose up off the ground. Well, for dogs, the more they sniff, the more relaxing, like I talked about earlier, it is. So it's actually more physically draining for them to sniff the whole walk than the exercise they get from walking itself. So basically, walk is great. Another one you can do is a treat. I call it the doggy stairmaster. Go to the top of the stairs, show the dog you have a treat, throw the treat, don't throw the dog, throw the treat to the bottom of the stairs. When the dog licks it up, say Alabama or Louisiana or Mexico or a word that means to go down, stop. Then call the dog back up, give it another treat, and this time we call it Canada or Aspen. So the words mean go up. Now do this, remember, with an empty stomach, and the first time you do it until the dog's like, you're crazy, I'm not going down there anymore. Now we know what the maximum number is. We want to exercise each dog about 50 to 75% of their maximum number, and they would probably have different maximum numbers. She's probably not going to, well, I don't know. One of them might do it 50 times, the other might make it 75. So that's why we max them out with an empty stomach the first time to figure out who needs how much. Now, when she comes up and she's rambunctious and she's nudging you and she wants to play and you got to do other things, instead of interpreting her being naughty, take her to the stairs. She's probably saying, I'm bored and I have too much energy. I need to burn this energy. So if you take her to the stairs and spend 3 to 5 minutes on the stairs, that's equivalent to like a 20 or 30 minute walk, but we can do it when the weather's poor outside, if it's late at night, or if we have guests coming over. Exercising the dogs before the guests come over sets them up for success. Something else you can do is play fetch. Rusty really likes playing fetch. She does not. And so that reminds me of something else we want to go over. But so basically play a little fetch. You can use fetch up and down the stairs as well if that works, as long as he'll do it. Now, she stole his bully sticks. Make sure that when he has a bully stick, she's not allowed to go get it. So if she keeps on doing it, she's quicker than he, and he just kind of leaves it, and then she goes and takes it. So what you might want to do is if he gets up and leaves it, or when she has one, give her a bigger one, and then maybe exercising her beforehand might help. But then you might put her on a leash. So afterwards, she can't run and go try to steal Rusty's when Rusty gets up and go get a drink of water, because you're going to not allow that to happen. Anything your dogs do in your presence that you don't specifically disagree with, you're saying, I agree. So, and it's important. It's a great way for you to show her, look, I'm being the boss. I'm not letting you steal from him. And when he has one, I'm not letting you come near him, and vice versa. So it's through our actions that dogs perceive authority and whether or not they trust or resonate with us or not. So, okay. So other things you can do is you can Google scent games. That's hiding treats around. Like I said, there are a lot of puzzles, but using the dog's nose is very stimulating. So look for opportunities to do that. And they're older dogs, so they don't need as much energy as probably like the Dalmatians that I have. But at the same time, they do need that stimulation. And if they don't get it, often they're going to get in a little bit of trouble. Now, we also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if the dog comes up and she nudges me, she's telling me what to do. If I pet her, that validates that perception. If she thinks she's my boss because she tells me what to do, it's also her job to correct me and to protect me. And that could be Rusty. That could be a contributing factor for Rusty. I think for Rusty's reactivity is genetics and probably a couple other factors as well. So basically what we want to do is when the dog comes up and nudges us and tells us what to do, instead of validating by doing what the dog wants, we're going to give the dog a counter order. We're going to tell the dog to sit or to lie down. If it's already sitting, ask him to sit over here or ask it to lay down. When it does, pet it under his chin, say the word sit, and then you pet it as much or as little as you want. If it doesn't sit within 3 seconds of you saying it the first time, you don't pet it. You do it my way or you don't get the reward. Think of petting your dog as paying. You gave your dog a job. It didn't do the job. If you pay it anyway, it's never going to do the job. So use the watchword paycheck if you suspect someone's petting without a purpose. And if you can't get that communicated, that's okay as well. But we just want to do that as much as we possibly can because we'll inadvertently pet the dog without a purpose. Even if you want to pet the dog, you should still tell the dog to sit or to lay down. And whenever possible, try to pet them under their chin and say just the command word. Oh, what a good, smart, big boy you are. Well, none of those are the words sit. You want to just say just the command word, not even good sit, just sit, just come, just down. So basically, that's petting with a purpose. That's if the dog wants you to pet it, it's giving you an order, or you want to pet the dog that has to sit or lay down before you pet it. Passive training is just observing the dog, and when it does the things that we want, recognizing it and rewarding it within that 3-second window. So every time the dog comes to you, pet it and say come, when you didn't ask it to. Every time it sits near you, pet it and say sit under its chin. Every time it lays down, pet it and say down. Every time it goes here, I want to slew, thank you. And I'll talk about how to go here in a second. For passive training, it's just, one of the questions I ask my clients is, what could your dog do to make you happy? Most people really struggle with that because we don't, and if you can't tell me, the dogs don't know. And they try to do all these other things that we don't want them to do. Well, shoot, every time they must like it when I come because every time I come to them, they pet me. They must like it when I sit because they pet me for sitting, laying down, and so on and so forth. So the more that you do these things, the more the dog will start to offer those behaviors as opposed to the unwanted behaviors. Remember, for dogs, good attention, bad attention, pretty much the same thing. So if barking at the window gets you to correct me, well, that's validating, even if you're yelling or you're mad about it. But we'd rather have the dog come and sit next to you. And if we do that maintenance, that will help them get out of the habit of doing that. Now, for Heidi, she had a bully stick. She kept on stealing his bully sticks. We couldn't get her to drop. So you want to do a drop command with what we call a low value item. Now, to train a dog to do a drop command, this would probably be too big, but I'll use it for demonstration purposes. Let's say this is her mouth and she's holding on to it. I'm going to grab a treat from my treat pouch, come over here and touch her nose with it. And hold it right here. Try to keep the treat within an inch or two of her nose. And she's probably going to turn away from you because this is this is a higher value item. This is actually a low value item. Bully sticks would be a high value. We want to practice on the easiest version possible, kind of like what I talked about in the video above. So she has this and she's not particularly enamored. I come over, I touch her nose with it, I hold the treat here. As soon as she drops it, I pop the treat in her mouth, say the word drop, and then don't show any interest in the object. If you do this with low value items enough, eventually she has a bully stick or a high value item, say drop it, she spits it out, who's giving me a treat? So what we're saying is if you drop what you have, I'll give you something better than what you had. And then you get your original stuff back. That's a pretty good deal. And if we shape it with low value items, eventually you get her to drop high value items as well. Okay, so let me see, the dog bed. So, Heidi, Heidi. So if I wanted to teach her to go to the dog bed, I'm going to have Taylor say the name because I've already forgotten it again.
Slew.
So what you do is you have 10 treats. You throw a treat on the dog bed. When either dog licks it up, you say slew one time in a normal tone of voice. Then wait for the dog to vacate the dog bed, throw another one. Do that about 10 treats in a row, 3 or 4 times a day. It won't take very long before you say slew and the dog will just go over there. Now this dog bed is not ideal in terms of the color. It's a blind dog bed, but dogs are colorblind and it also has a pattern on it, so it's hard for the dog to see. So when you get a dog bed, get a light cream, like the color of this carpet, a light white, white or a light gray. Down, passive training. And so basically, that makes it easier for the dog to see. I would recommend you go to Groupon and get them there. They're the cheapest. And get one that's like a large, so that both dogs can be on at the same time. That way, when we're throwing the treat, if you get one that's too small, the treat bounces off, or you can't get both dogs together. Dogs sleeping together is a pretty nice bonding thing. Now, this is sleep, but we also have some dog beds, I'm guessing, in the office where they sleep. And so you might do the same principle. So if you're in the office and you want to tell them to go there, you can say, maybe this is sleep, maybe the other one is USC, the other one is, usually Florida, if we're going with the college deal. So that way you can give the dogs a command word and say, Syracuse or Hawaii or whatever the name of the word of the university or whatever it is. Same principle here. Now, once the dog goes here on its own, then we would want to say the command word, or if we have a treat, pull a treat out and throw it. So now every time I come here, it rains treats. Or if we're lying on the couch when we're watching TV and we're relaxed, just say the word when the dog goes to the dog bed. And the more that happens, the more you can then direct the dog to go to the dog bed, and it will go there on command. Trying to think. Remember to use those escalating consequences. If you forget how to do those or anything else that we cover in this session, please call me or text me. Texting is the fastest way to reach me. Don't email me. I get about 50 emails a day. They will go to the bottom of my list. It might take me a week to get back to you. A text message, I'll get back to you within 24 hours. If I don't, text me again. Heidi! 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 There you go. Sit. Sit.
So the turkeys are just flying.
Oh, is that what it is? Well, we're not going to get him to come back because the turkeys are flying and
I don't think he's distracted.
Oh, okay. Well, he's in the other room. So this is their roadmap to success. Now remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.